we talk about tax increases being baked in, we can broaden this out into discussion about the potential doom loop here. So we have a chancellor with next to no imagination that is following very, very strict fiscal rules on the basis of forecasts from the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility that even the OBR says are highly uncertain. And I think one of the most ridiculous things that we saw last week was the government scrambling around at the last minute for an extra few hundred million of savings on the welfare bill, purely to hit this arbitrary target of 9.9 billion of fiscal headroom in 5 years' time. So 9.9 billion, not 10 billion or 9.8 billion. There's no economic logic in that whatsoever. Although I'm not an expert on the benefit system, I would be very surprised if the measures that were sort of produced out of the hat at the last minute are actually going to be optimal and don't leave some vulnerable people behind. So I think it's a really big problem with our fiscal framework at the moment. And as I say, a lack of imagination from the Chancellor as well. So loads of things that we need to do. So, for example, reforming the tax system, loads of punitively high marginal rates that are discouraging investment and discouraging people from working. That she could have done something there. Even the tax increases she did do, if you except for the moment the taxes might have to rise, she raised almost exactly the wrong taxes. So national insurance is a tax on jobs, a further increase in stamp duty, which is a tax that almost every single economist hates. Where were the alternatives? So, for example, could she have looked at saving money on the amount of interest the Bank of England pays to commercial banks on the reserves that have been created under quantitative easing? I mean, that could have saved 10 billion a year relatively easily. And then finally, as I touched on earlier, it's all very well talking about growth measures, and she's doing some good things on things like planning reform and financial services, but that's being offset by other things that are happening, like the increased regulation of the labour market and all the stuff around net zero. So I think there's a lack of imagination, and because of that, I fully understand why the budget, the spring statement seems to have landed so badly with the public. Rachel Reeves' popularity has fallen even further. And there is a risk that this sort of compounds the doom and gloom in consumer and business confidence. And even though consumers in particular have the potential to spend more, they've built up quite high savings in aggregate over the last few years, they're reluctant to do so because they're worried about future taxes, benefit cuts, losing their jobs. So I'm afraid it does look pretty ugly at the moment.